Hey, so as I was going to upload everything, I did realize that about the 22-minute mark, apparently my internet got a little bit wonky and everything cut out. So basically, for probably about 3 to 5 minutes from 22 minutes on, there's a little bit of a break. So, not really going to hear anything. If you want to skip ahead, I think it picks back up where I'm breaking down Michael Thorbjornsen. Easy for me to say. But sorry about that. I'm not really sure what happened, but just wanted to give you a heads up at the top there, and hopefully we can keep that from happening going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is At the Helm Sports. I'm your host, Derek Helm. Thank you for joining me for episode 135. Please be sure to follow and subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave those 5-star reviews. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Hit the like button. None of you are hitting that like button, so go ahead and do that. And in the comment section, let me know, who do you like this week in the 6K range on DraftKings? Think there's actually a good amount of guys that you could play this week, and obviously guaranteed all 4 rounds with no cut. So let me know, who do you like in the 6K range? But this week we'll be diving into the Travelers Championship. Going to recap the US Open because it was a good one. And really, we could start right there. I mean, that was amazing. Basically, from start to finish, it was the most I've got to consume golf from start to finish of a tournament all year. The radio coverage on the app was absolutely incredible. 12 hours a day. Generally, I'm sitting in a loader or an excavator for 9, 10 hours a day. So I only get the regular coverage that usually starts at noon, goes to maybe 5 o'clock, and get a couple hours here and there, but was basically able to listen all day. And then when I got home from work, got to watch the end of the round. So got to basically consume all of Thursday and Friday. Went golfing myself Saturday morning, but then watched all the rest of it for the rest of the day there, and then basically was glued to it on Sunday. So it was awesome. I absolutely love Pinehurst. I love the fact that they're going back there. I think it is a perfect major venue. They did an incredible job with the course. It played very penal. Sometimes it seemed a little unfair, but it wasn't too over the top. So absolutely kudos to them, to the USGA, for the way that they set that up. I think it worked out absolutely perfectly. And then obviously Rory. I mean, it's brutal. It sucks. It's just, to miss 2 short putts like that and what he's already going through at home. I'm sure he's not in the best of places right now. But as far as people saying that he's never going to win another major or this is going to totally break him, I don't think that's the case at all. I honestly think that he withdrew this week for the Travelers, and by next week, he's probably back at it, ready to go. Now, I doubt he's actually going to play in a tournament until probably right before the Open, but I don't agree at all that this is the end of Rory. It's not like he's Tiger, where we're seeing his skills severely diminished. The guy's still up there competing all the time, and I absolutely expect him to compete in majors going forward and get at least one more. I would assume, but anyone that's trying to say that Rory just completely choked it away, to an extent, yeah, but at the same time, even if he made that second putt, there's still a chance at a playoff. There's no guarantee that he wins the playoff. And everybody forgets that Bryson literally missed almost as short of a putt to basically give him the lead in the first place right before those 2 missed putts happened. So anyone trying to take anything away from Bryson, I think that's ridiculous. You could feel for Rory and you could say that he gave up a great chance, but I don't think you could say he gagged it away and it wasn't necessarily his to win. And Bryson, what he did on 18, I mean, the guy couldn't hit a fairway at all on Sunday. I think he hit four fairways. So to be where he was, bending under a tree, ends up in a bunker, and not a greenside bunker. He was quite a bit out to put it to where he did and to hit the putt. I mean, that was balls of steel. That was a very, very incredible performance of him. I am a Bryson fan, huge fan, always have been, basically since his first appearance as an amateur at the Masters when he won me a bet. I've been a fan since, so was definitely happy to see it. But I have to say, I did not expect this at all. I actually had him in the bet slip last week and talk myself out of it because I told myself that I'm just absolutely betting with my heart and not thinking with my head, and that this place does not suit Bryson at all. So I ended up going Brooks instead, and obviously that didn't work out, and I was pretty pissed at myself. But I mean, kudos to Bryson because I did not think this was a place where he would compete. And no matter how much trouble he was in, he came right back, and it was an incredible performance. I think this was even more impressive than his first U.S. Open win, and he lapped the field there. Basically, was the only one under par in that one. But absolutely incredible performance from Bryson, and sucks for Rory, but I absolutely think he will be back. And it's funny to see the popularity that we have. Last week with Raza, I basically said everybody that went to live got hated, and it's basically the opposite for Bryson. He just goes over there, and now all of a sudden he's the fan favorite. So maybe it is just a fact of once people hear him a little bit more and how awkward and goofy he is, maybe it rubs off a little bit. But great to see what he's doing for the game right now, and absolutely applaud him. But third majors in the rearview mirror. We head to TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. Pete Dye designed 6,850-yard par 70 with bent grass POA mixed greens. Basically, they are more like bent grass, not your typical West Coast POA, but they run a little bit faster than the typical bent grass. So definitely going to want to keep an eye on that. One of the shortest courses on tour. I think it is actually the second shortest behind Pebble Beach. So a couple changes over the last year. They made some of the fairways a little bit tighter, put a couple mounds in, but nothing really too crazy. The yardage didn't change at all. So I wouldn't really worry about that too much. But there are two par fives on the course. Both of them should be reachable by most. And really, you definitely want to take advantage of those. Obviously, there's only two of them. They're the two easiest holes on the course. So definitely want to do some scoring there. The par threes, there are four of them, two of which play over 200 yards. They play pretty difficult. I think Keegan, even though he shot well under, I think 68 was his worst round last week or last year, and he gave up strokes on the par threes. So really, you're not going to score much on the par threes. You just kind of want to coast through and not give any shots back, and try and take advantage of the two par fives and some of these easier par fours. There are 12 par fours on the course. Eight of them are 400 to 450 yards. So definitely going to want to be looking at that range for golfers this week. The 15th hole is a potentially drivable 296 yard, can play a little bit less than that as well. There is some water there, but even if you go in the water, we've seen guys save par plenty of times. So it's basically guys are going to be going for that hole, and it's definitely an interesting, not a lot of guys probably getting double bogey there. They maybe possibly bogey, but a lot of guys are going to be shooting, trying to get that eagle or possibly birdie it. So that's definitely a scoring opportunity that we want to keep an eye on. Fairways are pretty wide, around 70% of fairways we've seen hit here. So guys are going to, it's not necessarily a less than driver course, despite how short it is. Some guys will absolutely on certain holes choose to go less than driver, and the average drive does show that around 280 yards, so a little bit less than tour average. But guys can absolutely hit driver here. That they have these wide fairways, especially guys like Ludwig and Scotty and guys that have a little distance but also have that accuracy. So we could see a wide range of skill sets play here. Really, the shorter hitters definitely want to be living in the fairway. The rough isn't crazy in the first cut. If you do miss fairways by a little bit, probably still be able to get out of there, especially not, it's not one of these courses. It's not like Memorial where we have most of the shots coming from over 200 yards and you're hitting at a thick rough. So not the end of the world if you're not in the fairway. The shorter hitters probably want to be in the fairway, but if you do get wildly off course here, there are some trees. The rough does get a little bit deeper. We do have a good amount of bunkers around the course. So really just don't want to get too far off course. Now, there are some shots from 200 plus yards, but that's mainly coming on the par threes. The bulk of them are wedge shots. We're looking at 20% from 125 to 150 yards, with another 25% from 150 to 175. So you really want guys that are good dialed in with those wedges. Obviously, with shorter shots, greens in regulation a little bit easier than tour average, coming in at about 68% of greens hit. Now, there will be some around the green and bunker play needed here. You might rely on some sand saves here and there. There are a lot of bunkers around here. And if you do miss the green, it's not like what we saw last week where it's tight lies. They'll be chipping out of rough, hence the reason we'll get to Hovland and why I like him a little more this week. But if you're missing too many greens, I don't think you're necessarily going to be competing for a win here. So don't want to miss too many greens. Definitely got to be hitting greens in regulation and really making your putts, because we've seen this turn into a little bit of a birdie fest. Obviously, Keegan set the tournament record last year at minus 23. Xander won. I believe he was minus 19. Harris English won in a playoff. Basically, we've seen the bulk of winners over the last couple of years, somewhere around that minus 17 number. So I would expect birdies definitely got to be made there. So we're going to want to be looking at opportunities gained, birdies are better gained. Definitely want to look at par four scoring, more specifically the 400 to 500 yards. I would definitely look at approach. Really, you could probably look at a little bit more ball striking this week rather than just approach, and then maybe throw in those proximity ranges from 150 to 175 and 125 to 150 there. I'm looking at a little bit of putting, within 5 to 10 feet, 10 to 15. Guys are definitely going to have to be making those. So when they get the birdie opportunities, you definitely want to see them capitalize on it. But that's basically what we're looking at here. As I said, I don't think it's a specific skill set that you have to target here. A lot of different guys will play. Really, I'm just going to be looking for guys that have a lot of what we were talking about in the key stats and that are in good form coming in, not holding the US Open against a lot of guys, but I don't know how many guys you can really make a huge case for with the US Open, but I'm sure there's a couple we can get to. If we dive into the field, obviously, as with every week, it starts with Scotty Scheffler. And, even though he won the Memorial, it didn't look like he was on top of his game, was missing a lot of fairways, missing a lot of greens. Colin Morikawa just couldn't capitalize. So Scotty didn't really look like he had his A game there. Obviously, last week was just off, missing left off the tee quite a bit, hitting from the native area. Now, granted, maybe this week hitting out of the rough, it's a little bit easier for him. But I think you can make a case, not necessarily to fade Scotty, but just maybe that he's not in the form that he was when he was taking everything down. So just something to keep in mind, and maybe really just an excuse of why I'm telling myself I shouldn't play 100% Scotty. But at 12.5, he's definitely affordable. We don't have a 5K range here, but I definitely think you can go to him. I will be playing Scotty. And just maybe we don't see the ceiling that we've had, but obviously I don't think anybody has a safer floor right now. Rory obviously withdrew. Say nobody has a safer floor, but you can argue that Xander does. I mean, he didn't have his A game either last week, and he still ended up performing well. Basically, I don't know what to do here because I do like a lot of these guys a little bit below him. So I don't know if I can necessarily afford Scotty and Xander, especially if I'm trying to get overweight the field. Scotty's probably pushing that 35%. I mean, we could see him 40% in some tournaments. Xander, I would say at least 25%. So I don't know if I'm necessarily going to be able to get there on both of them, but it's very, very hard to make a case against either of them. And as crazy as it sounds, I might actually be more inclined to play Xander this week. But the reason why it's making it such a difficult decision is because I absolutely love Ludwig Oberg here this week. Just, I mean, obviously the knee looks like it's not really an issue. We've seen him the past couple weeks play pretty well at the Memorial, played well at the US Open, kind of got caught up to him, a little bit of the around the green game over the weekend, and he put up some big numbers, but he showed up, he played well. We've seen him play well on some of these shorter courses, second off the tee, seventh on approach, fifth in opportunities gained, fifth in birdies or better, fifth in par four scoring, sixth on par fours, 400 to 450 yards, 11th from 125 to 150. So he has a lot of what you like here. And I love him. I didn't make the outright on him. I'm kind of upset that I didn't because I kind of do like him a little bit more than the two guys I did take, but I love the numbers that I got on them, so I can't really complain too much. One of those guys is Colin Morikawa. Now, I used a boost, got him up to 27 to 1. This guy has just been knocking on the door for quite some time here. Obviously, the US Open didn't go as great for him, but still played well and just the improvements he's made around the green and putting, I really think that he can compete here. He's fifth putting from 10 to 15 feet over the last 24 rounds, fourth off the tee, third around the green. So made huge improvements there, and we've definitely been seeing him strike the irons better. So do like that. And then the bulk of the approach shots are coming from 150 to 175 yards. He's third from that proximity range. So I love Morikawa. He's been playing way too well. At some point, I really believe he's going to get a win, and I have been on him, and I'm not getting off him now. Cantlay seems like he is going to be very popular after coming out of essentially nowhere last week and competing. Did seem to find the irons a little bit more after they were missing for a while, but if he's going to be this popular, it's a course where he's played well but never really flashed a ceiling. And if you're going to give me these other guys at possibly a lower ownership, I am absolutely going elsewhere. So I will most likely be fading Patrick Cantlay this week. And I don't really like rooting for the guy anyway, so it makes it pretty easy. Victor Hovland, I don't think he's going to be extremely popular. I don't think he'll be very low owned, but I don't think people are rushing to play him. Obviously, didn't look good last week. I didn't expect him to play well at the US Open. Not really a venue that suits him, chipping off of those tight lies, chipping out of native areas, not great. So we did see him flash a little bit, look better at the Memorial and previously. So I like Hovland here quite a bit. We talk about the ball striking, that is absolutely there. He can putt and get hot with the putter from time to time. So I got Victor at 22 to 1. I think it's a good price for him. We've seen him chip much better from rough than those tight lies, as I said. So I do think that this fits him a little bit better. Hideki was someone that I kind of wanted to get away from. 9,200, though, I think is a really good price for him with how well he's been playing. Kind of want to see what his ownership gets at, though, because if he's astronomically out of there, I think there's some other guys that I would like to go to. But obviously, he's back to back top 10 performances. So after some withdrawal concerns, and I mean, granted, this is his third week in a row playing, so maybe he withdraws this week. It's always a concern, but the game certainly is not right now. He looks to be in that form that we saw a little bit earlier in the year. Sam Burns doesn't rate out well incredibly statistically, but I do think this is a place that fits him well at 9,000 flat. I think it's a good price for him. We want guys that can get hot with the putter, and absolutely Burns can do that. So he's been playing much better recently. Obviously, coming off his best finish at a major, so I think that gives him some confidence. Has a couple top 10 finishes coming in. I like Burns quite a bit. I waited a little bit on him, got him at 31. So I don't hate that number, but I do know there were some 40s and 50s earlier in the week. But I'm fine rolling with the Burns 30 to 1, and will play quite a bit of him on DraftKings. Interesting to see what people are going to do with Finau this week. I mean, obviously played well, but I do worry about the putter in a birdie fest, so I'm probably not going to get there. Degal is another one that just I've been on all year. Shows flashes, very volatile, but at 8,800, I do think that that price is a little bit high, especially for the guys that he's around. So maybe it keeps his ownership down a little bit. The guy almost won here. If it wasn't for an absolutely terrible drive on 18 2 years ago, he walks away a winner. Obviously, I'm not upset at all because I didn't have an outright on him that year. But anyways, I do think that you could play Thigala here. Shows a ceiling constantly. The around the green game has regressed quite a bit, but he's still very great ball striking. He's good from those proximity ranges with the 125 to 150 and 150 to 175. So I do think I'm going to get there on Thigala, a guy that makes a lot of birdies, and there's not a ton of trouble around here, so maybe he can keep the bogeys at bay a little bit. I still expect him to make some, but maybe not as many as what could absolutely handicap him here. Going back to Keegan Bradley, 8,700, might make a top 20 bet on him. I was very close to making the outright. It's just, I don't know if I could see Keegan necessarily going back to back here. We've seen him play pretty good golf recently, striking the ball well. He's actually fourth in opportunities gained over the last 24 rounds. So hitting greens in regulation and giving himself opportunities. Just hopefully he can hit some putts. And actually, over the last 24 rounds, he's third from 10 to 15 feet putting. So if he can string together some putts, I do like his chances to play well here. So 8,700, I think, is a great price for Keegan, and might be making the top 20 on him. Russell Henley looks to be in great form. I don't think that I would ever make the outright on him here. It's just a guy that I don't think is going to beat these guys at a big boy event. But at 8,600, I think he's absolutely in play from a DraftKings standpoint. Statistically, he looks great. Sixth on approach, ninth around the green, ninth in opportunities gained, 18th birdies or better. The par fours from 400 to 450, he's ninth. Fourth from that 125 to 150 range. Good putting. I mean, he's been on a tear lately, and it's hard not to go there. But do want to keep an eye on his ownership because he's most likely the highest owned down here below Scotty and Xander. I'm going to play Justin Thomas. I didn't expect to at all, but it looks like his ownership is going to come in quite a bit, especially being squeezed between Connors and Henley and Harmon. So I think Thomas can play well here. We know he has a pretty good wedge game. I think the off the tee suits him a little bit more than it did last week. Now, granted, again, I'm saying I'm not going to play Finau because of the putter. Same applies for Justin Thomas, but we have seen him be very, very streaky here. And I mean, he can string together four birdies in a row. The problem is he's then gone on to make a double or make back to back bogeys. So as I said with the Gala, maybe this course playing a little bit easier and having some more opportunities for birdies and not so many to make bogeys. Maybe that plays to Justin Thomas's strengths a little bit more. Not expecting him to win, but at 8,500 at the ownership that he's coming in at, I think it's absolutely worth a play. Next, I'm going to lump these two guys together. Not exactly the same type of player, skill set, but 8,400 for Corey Connors, 8,300 Brian Harmon. I do expect them to be very, very popular, especially Harmon. So I don't know if I'm going to get there on either one of them. Honestly, as of right now, I probably lean more so to Connors, which seems kind of silly because this is basically the Brian Harmon Open. He shows up here every year. He did miss the cut 2 years ago, though. So maybe at a huge ownership, if he hasn't been playing incredible. He played okay at the US Open, but we really haven't been seeing any of the ceiling performances. Granted, at 8,300, you don't necessarily need a ceiling from him, but I just don't know if I'm going to get there, especially at the ownership. Speaking of ownership, Jordan Speed's going to be incredibly low owned. This is a course where he's actually performed well in the past. The wrist is a bit of a concern, but the rough isn't incredibly penal here. So maybe it doesn't put as much strain on that wrist. And really, it just comes down to can he make putts? Because this is a guy that used to be incredible with the putts and drilling stuff left and right. And it seems to have lost him, but he's been playing very well off the tee. Actually gained a little bit with the irons last week. So I think you can consider him. I don't know if I'm going to get there. Someone I'm absolutely playing is Tom Kim, 8,100. I know I'm not going to be alone there. Plays these shorter courses very well. He's great with the birdies, good on the par fours from 400 to 450. Next, the guy I like is Michael Thorbjornsen, 6,500. Now, this kid literally just got his PGA Tour, so this will be his first tournament basically as a PGA pro. He's on for the rest of the year and all of 2025. He basically won the college NCAA championship by default. I believe the guy he was supposed to face in the match had to pull out, so he's the winner by default. But he gets his PGA Tour card, and this kid basically has been bred since he was a toddler to be the next superstar. He beat Bhatia back when they were junior amateurs, and he basically has not looked back. And he's actually played some events on tour and come out pretty well. I think he actually has 4 top 10s already, basically, if we're looking, or 4 top 20s on the DP World Tour and PGA Tour. So I do think that this kid is the real deal. I think he's going to be great. He played the Travelers a couple years ago, came top 20. So I absolutely love him here. This is a guy that I expect to be much, much more expensive in the future. So definitely keep your eye on him. And I have made an outright on him also at 200 to 1 with a top 6 each way. Willing to go back to Vic Perez at 6,500. Didn't play well last week, but US Open, that's fine. I think he was playing very well before that. And then I kind of like Seamus Power at 6,500 for here also. But that's really all we're looking at this week. To recap the betting board, I have Victor Hovland at 22 to 1. I have Colin Morikawa 27 to 1. Sam Burns 30 to 1. Excuse me. Then we have man, Tom Kim 66 to 1 with the top 6 each way. Then we have Bhatia 90 to 1 with a top 6 each way. And Michael Thorbjornsen at 200 to 1 with a top 6 each way. Check out theHelmSports.com. Go to the My Bets tab. You can basically find everything as far as bets for the week that I have over there. There is a live event this week. Not sure if I'm going to be betting it. Haven't really been able to look into it too much. So if I do, it'll be up there at thehelmsports.com. Sign up for the newsletter on Substack, The Helm Sports. Get everything sent right to you. All my DraftKings plays and final bets and all that good stuff. But that's going to do it for this week. As always, thank you for listening. Greatly appreciated. I am your host, Derek Helm. And remember,
just have fun out there.